Chairman, committee members, and participants. We are now live.
Thank you so very much. Good morning, everyone. This is a public hearing on the Committee of Public Safety regarding resolution number 230467. And before we begin this hearing, I'd like Mr. Glass to read an important announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. Everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this public hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to Councilman Jones recognizing members for the questions or comments they have for the witnesses, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Glass. We will now take the roll to establish a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilmember Gaudier.
Present. Hello, Mr. Chair and colleagues.
Good morning.
Councilmember Harity.
Present.
Good morning, Mr. Member Harity.
Councilmember Lozada. Councilmember Brooks.
Present.
Good morning, Member Brooks.
Councilman Johnson, present. Excuse me.
Good morning, Member Johnson.
Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Johnson is present, and Chairman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Glass. We will now read the title of the resolution and begin our hearing. We have a quorum.
I'm here also, even though he didn't call me.
And
Councilwoman Vaughn.
the author of the resolution. Thank you, Member Vaughn. We note for the record your presence.
Mr. Chairman, the title of the resolution number 230467, authorizing the Committee on Public Safety to hold hearings regarding the escape of 2 inmates from the Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Center on the evening of May 7, 2023, and the persistent systemic issues within the Philadelphia Department of Prisons that made such an escape possible.
Member Vaughn, we'd like to open this hearing with comments from you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. And Commissioner, I don't think I greeted you when I first came on. I thank you all for joining. And I just want to state that the reason for this hearing is to make sure that our city will be safe from this event ever happening again. I wanted to get information on how it occurred and what has been done since it happened to make sure that this occurrence won't happen again here in Philadelphia. I would appreciate as much information as possible to be shared with this quorum. And if you feel that some information should not be shared with the public, by all means, do not. I don't think I have to tell you that, because I am not looking to hurt anyone or cause a riot or put people in a position where they have more information than they may have had prior to this event that will allow them advice or information to do it better the next time. I don't want that to happen. I want the inmates to be safe. I want the people that work with them to remain safe. And I also want our city of Philadelphia to remain safe. That is this whole purpose of this meeting. And I hope that we can come to a reasonable conclusion at the end of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vaughn, and we share that opinion that this is a hearing to try to figure out how do we move in a direction that makes us all safer as a city. So with that, Mr. Glass, will you please read the names of the first panel to testify?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Our first panel is Commissioner Blanche Carney from the Philadelphia Department of Prisons.
Welcome, Commissioner, and thank you for your attendance. Please state your name for the record and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Jones and other members of council. Blanche Carney, Commissioner of Philadelphia Department of Prisons. Good morning, Councilmember Jones, Chair of the Committee on Public Safety, and members of City Council. I am the Commissioner of Philadelphia Department of Prisons, and I'm here to provide an update to the testimony given on June 23rd, 2023 for resolution number 230467 regarding the escape of 2 inmates from the Philadelphia Department of Prisons, Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Center on May 7th, 2023. I will recite the points stated in resolution 230467, followed by my responses. My testimony pertains to the resolution authorizing the Committee on Public Safety to hold hearings regarding the escape of 2 inmates from the Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Center on the evening of May 7, 2023, and the persistent systemic issues within the Philadelphia Department of Prisons that made such an escape possible. The 2 escaped inmates exited through the recreational yard fence by crawling underneath an opening in the fence, running to the secondary perimeter fence, climbing on an exterior security alert pole that is no longer in operation in order to scale the secondary perimeter fence, and using a prison-issued sweatshirt to move across the barbed wire and make their way off the prison grounds to an awaiting vehicle. The City of Philadelphia's Law Department contracted outside legal counsel to work with us, the Department of Prisons Office of Professional Compliance, as we conducted an extensive investigation into the events which allowed the escape of 2 inmates from the Philadelphia Department of Prisons. The Office of Professional Compliance conducted an extensive investigation of the escapees to identify staff to be interviewed, inmate phone call recordings, security tapes, staff assignments, and physical tours of the Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Facility. The efforts of the Office of Professional Compliance resulted in hours of interviewing, and a preliminary draft report was shared with the outside legal counsel for their review. PDP has also complied with any requests it has received from the District Attorney's Office. While the investigation is still ongoing, I'm unable to provide testimony on additional personnel-related actions that may occur as a result. We took immediate steps to reassign executive leadership of the Philadelphia Industrial Correctional System, Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Facility in May of 2023. And those executive leadership staff were replaced May 22nd. And we have implemented the following security upgrades to prevent another escape attempt from the Philadelphia Department of Prisons. Specifically, for the Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Center, security upgrades are as follows. We made immediate repairs of the prison fence of the recreation yard where the inmates escaped. There has been installation and ongoing additional installation of razor wire along the immediate recreation area and outer fencing. It was the removal of the security alert posts that were no longer in operation. They have been removed. The installation of river rock along the exterior fencing of PICC to prevent a soft landing, which could result in injury to one's legs and feet. Added an additional post for permanent roving by our prison vehicle. Installation of new correctional officers booth with new gate arm in the PICC staff parking lot. Installation of LED lighting, which gives us brighter illumination in front of the PIC administrative parking lot. We reinforce policies for door security and yard patrols. So to ensure that any door that has a door, it should be locked, and that to increase our yard patrols. Yard doors remain properly secured when recreation is not in use. Installation of additional cameras in front of PICC. In addition to those upgrades for PICC, the following have been completed for our campus grounds. Installation of LED stadium lighting at the detention center, which allows us greater illumination on our perimeter and visibility. massive removal of brush and bushes for maximum distance sightline throughout our campus and perimeter. That was a huge undertaking, but we achieved that. So we have a greater visibility. The following upgrades are in progress, and that is the installation of circuit wiring to install additional LED lighting on our perimeter along our campus, installation of additional cameras for perimeter of campus, both on the campus and inside our facilities, and installation of additional perimeter cameras for CFCF, PIC, and RCF. So those projects are in progress either through the procurement of contracting, the beginning of the circuit wiring to install that additional lighting and cameras. We are dealing with the aftermath and impacts of the pandemic on our staffing levels. At present, we have correctional officer vacancies. We continue our efforts to hire and fill uniform vacancies. We work with the Central Office of Human Resources to allow for continuous job announcements, allowing applicants to apply without breaks in the announcement. Additionally, we continue our recruitment efforts through job advertisements on SEPTA buses and stops, platforms, radio ads, and social media outlets, as well as participation at job fairs. We strive to make corrections attractive again in this competitive labor market and select qualified applicants. This staff shortage is coupled with a static population that averages 4,700 plus daily. The city committed to reducing its prison population by 50%. In response to the MacArthur Foundation Safety and Justice Challenge to reimagine and rebuild local criminal justice systems by reducing jail incarceration, increasing equity for all. The city's initial efforts to reduce the prison population through collaboration with all of its criminal justice system made tremendous progress from 2015 to 2019. The population is now static, averaging 223 days length of stay, comprised of 89% pretrial and 11% sentenced individuals. The entire criminal justice system must resume its previous efforts to decrease the PDP population, thereby to meet the initial goal of the MacArthur Initiative and reduce the strain on the PDP operations. The PDP continues to manage operations and conditions to best serve the population and our dedicated staff in service to the city of Philadelphia. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide this testimony.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. A couple of questions before I turn it over to members of the committee. What is the national average for facilities like yours over a period of time? I know that the Chester situation happened. Are we above or below the escape levels of other comparable facilities?
Council member, because this is happening, I have not looked at if we're above or below, but we are part of those national jurisdictions that are experiencing escapes. So we know what happened in Chester County. We know what happened in 3 other counties here in Pennsylvania. And most recently, there were 4 escapes from Macon, Georgia. So these escapes are happening more routinely than was previously expected, and it is based solely on a number of factors. Corrections, and not too many folks are really talking about it, but you and this council member, but the committee, but corrections, we have been obliterated by the pandemic. And we are challenged with trying to maintain a population that's static, 4,700 plus, with a limited workforce that are dedicated and committed to coming. So that can vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. We had 2, Chester had 1, Macon, Georgia had 4, Chicago had recently. So this is happening around the country more than we would like. Virginia just had 2 escapes as well. So this is a correlation with the great number of folks in custody and up against a very impacted minimal staffing level for correctional officers.
So if I understood what you just said, that some of this has to do with staffing levels?
Some of it has to do with staffing levels, and then some of it is based on what we're seeing is just making sure any door that is there should be secured at all times. So if it has a lock, lock it. follow your policy. So all of these factors go into how escape can occur.
So this is not our first hearing. So some of this information is not new to this committee. So how are we doing on hirings? What is our current vacancy level to date?
We have 867 uniform vacancies for correctional officers. That was my last run, and that was last week. I can provide you with the current number and do another run today. But the vacancy level, we are hiring, but not at the numbers I would like. We have experienced incremental increase in our classes where we were averaging 20 to 25. We're averaging 30 to 33 now. We just graduated a class a week and a half ago. We had a class of 30 start on Monday. So even though we have continuous classes, we need to increase the number of eligible applicants. That
Are-
go ahead.
Go ahead.
That
Are
clear- go ahead.
we providing incentives for hiring, such as bonuses, signing bonuses?
Yes, we do have the signing bonus. We also have the signing bonus. Once you complete the academy, you receive another bonus. We have an attendance incentive, and we've increased the salaries for the correctional officers. So we also have a bonus that we provide to any of our workforce that refers someone who clears the background check. They can receive a bonus for that referral once the person completes the academy. So there is funding.
How much is that bonus for the record?
It's $500.
Is that twice once you sign and once you complete the training? Is that two different?
250, two different, totaling 500. So it's 250 and 250.
We might want to take a look at increasing that. I'll bring that up to Member Gilmore Richardson, as an increased incentive to get people to take on the corrections officer position. Let me segue, and this will be my last question before I turn it over. We had previously talked about the locks up at the facility and replacing them. Where are we on the schedule of replacing those locks on doors?
So CFCF full replacement of locks. So the entirety of the facility has been outfitted with locks. RCF, all locks have been replaced. PICC, we had 20 outstanding locks. 11 have been, of that 20, 11 have been completed. They needed extensive framework. So it wasn't just the locking mechanism itself. There was some damage to the cell doors that had to be retrofitted. So the remainder at CFCF, we completed the 11. We're also working on looking at the detention center. We have, even though we depopulated it, we're doing some renovations at the detention center to replace the slider and some of the lock work there so we can utilize those cells based on our census going up. So those sliders will take us some time to get, because that facility built in the 60s, some of those parts are not available, have to be retrofitted or manufactured anew to comply with the existing structures. So that's our next task. But pretty much CFCF's complete, RCF's complete, PICC is close with the additional framework, and DC is the next we'll tackle.
Commissioner, what was the condition of the locks from the cell that the two inmates escaped from?
Those were brand new locks. They just were, the door was not properly secured.
Okay. Member Vaughn,
Yes,
would you like to question the commissioner?
yes. To my understanding, there was several counts done while in assisting these people from with escaping. What has been done to create a check and balance so that an officer will not be able to falsify documents?
So what we put in place was reiterating the policy, which would have and is sufficient, that you have to have a secondary layer for someone to check that count for accuracy. So it's not just filling out the paperwork, but a sergeant or lieutenant and a captain oversees what is the final count, sitting with that lieutenant to confer, is this the accuracy, holding and making sure people attest to the accuracy of that, not just signing off and then calling it in.
Okay. Because of the low staff, I understand a new system or a new schedule has been put in place. How is that operating thus far? They have a certain amount of days to work and a certain amount of days off, or a longer shift. Could you explain to me exactly what's happening with that?
Yes, so that is our 223 schedule. Prior to implementing the 223 schedule, correctional staff would work 6 days straight before they received a day off. The 223 allows for more of a work-life balance, 2 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on. And with that schedule, we're able to give 2 weekends off per month. Before that, they had to work 6 straight days. And understanding that we're human beings and this is a challenging job. We have to give our staff time to
Yeah.
recuperate, to breathe, to have time with their family. And since we implemented that, the feedback has been positive. Staff are reporting to me personally, I have more time. My wife or spouse has a honey-do list for me, and I'm able to make gains. So I thought that was the best approach, because when you know better, you do better. And that was my way of saying we have to do things different. This work is challenging, but working what we call Ironman hours, 6 days straight. That was a time, but now we're in the present and we should be working to do better with scheduling.
Great, great. I think that's a good idea, and it also gives them less exposure to a lot of the things that happen, like, they smoke that K2 in the prison and things like that, and it allows people a little more freedom. So I appreciate you for that, and also less fatigue, because if you're overworked, you sometimes cut corners. So hopefully this will improve that situation as well. Um, I guess the last thing I wanted to know, you said the door was not locked properly, but it was a new lock. So is it something the prisoner was able to do to make sure the door didn't get locked properly? And has that possibility been removed or corrected in some way?
Yes, it has. So um, when we began the installation of all the locks system wide, and just, added the addition to CFCF just because it was the correct thing to do, we have a training video that we put out as the correctional officers are securing folks inside their cells. We're asking them to, as you push and pull, to make sure that that door and the latch is catching, so any obstruction can be recognized. Also, with the yard door leading out into the recreational yard, making sure those doors remain secured, properly locked at all times when recreation is not in use.
Thank you. No further questions, Mr. Chairman. You're muted. Curtis, you're muted.
Some of my best comments happen when I'm muted. But thank you for those questions, Member Vaughn, and for your laser focus on this issue. So there is no perfect department or operation, but I think it's safe to say that you are constantly evaluating and try to make improvements. The question I would have, you mentioned that there were some staff relocations, or without talking about disciplinary actions, without violating it, you made certain moves based on what your evaluation was?
The immediate action I took was to transfer the executive leadership at that time. And I have since appointed a warden and another deputy there, but as the report is still being finalized, I can't say at this time what portions I can release, but it contains private, personal, and prison security information. But once it's finalized, I may be able to share that privately because of the sensitivity of staff or personnel decisions. But the immediate was because of the gravity of it, it was immediate transfer of the executive leadership team.
Understood, and understood the privacy aspect of it. Are there any, Mr. Glass, are there any other members that wish to question Commissioner Carney?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I'd like to note that Councilmember Thomas is present
Welcome, Member Thomas.
and Councilmember Harity would like to be recognized for questions.
Member Harity.
Hello, good morning, Commissioner. My question is actually just about recruitment. Meeting with the police officials at the academy and all that stuff, one of the complaints was that while they're getting a certain number of recruits, some of them can't pass the first initial physical exams. And they're talking about possibly getting a waiver for them to take those physical tests after they complete the academy when they may be better in shape. Is that something that are you guys experiencing that kind of stuff too, where you're maybe, you said 30 to 33 per class, like where you're getting maybe 70 people signing up, but only 33 are able to pass the initial criteria?
Thank you for that question. The majority of our folks that are not accepted is because of the background checks and may have a record. But we, since over a year and a half, we've been strategic in working with OHR to remove the weight restrictions, to say give people an opportunity to demonstrate that they can do it. So that hasn't been our challenge. So we're doing we looked at a number of things. So wait, we're going to take you. If you can pass our test, you're in. But prior to our making that request, if someone went down to get their medical clearance and they were overweight, then they were just rejected. So we no longer have that challenge. So we were saying, let the person demonstrate they can do it. If they can, they're in.
Okay, and just one other thing. So you said most of them are knocked off because of the criminal record part, right?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Nowadays, criminal records, as long as they're nonviolent, a lot of that stuff can be expunged after 5 years, 10 years. It's actually very simple. Are we giving any of these people that are maybe just on the cuffs, nonviolent, but got in trouble, and maybe it is over 5, 10 years since they got in trouble, and we could try to shift them to getting their record expunged and then reapplying?
If their record is expunged, we've had a few individuals that provided updated information to show that their records were expunged. It's a case-by-case basis. They were non-felonies, and we brought those folks in. So we had some folks during the process, they were even taking their driver's exam. More flexibility with that to get them in. So we're doing a number of things that we didn't previously do. But because this is such a competitive labor market, we're trying to track people back to corrections as a viable public safety, career. We're looking at everything, like what are the blocks? So anything that I receive as, hey, this person was not accepted, we look at a case by case, and then we work with central HR to work with them to get any barriers removed that we can.
Beautiful. All right. Commissioner, thank you. Appreciate the work you do. I know it's not an easy job, so thank you. No more questions.
Thank you,
Mr.
Member
Chairman.
Harity. Appreciate it. Mr. Glass, anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I am not seeing any more hands raised or questions in the chat. I see Councilmember Vaughn had questions, but I don't know if that was from before or not.
Member Vaughn, are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay, one other question. There was a apprehension of someone who was on the outside aiding and abetting the inmates that escaped. Is that correct?
That is correct. There was two civilian accomplices and one in the awaiting vehicle.
Is there anything you can share by way of advanced correspondence through FaceTime, through phone calls, through visits that could have tipped us off that this escape was being planned?
We do listen to phone calls because we did not have foreknowledge of it to get us a chance to say these individuals. We record phone calls, we have intel. So unfortunately, there were no indicators at that time where I can say and I can't share much more. But we are utilizing intel. We're using phone calls, recordings, visits, because we have the capability. But when something's on our radar, we are able to pick it up.
But as a general course, never mind. I retract that question. All right. Thank you very much for your testimony. There are no other questions for the commissioner. Mr. Glass, can you bring up the next panel?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, our next panel will be District Attorney Larry Krasner.
Mr. District Attorney, how are you?
I'm very well, Chairman. Thank you. First of all, I want to introduce Brett Kosian, a very talented and qualified assistant district attorney who has been poring over the evidence and information we have in relation to this prison escape, and who is going to be prosecuting it. I'll have a couple more comments. We do have a couple of photographs. We have a little bit of video to show you. And I have an invitation, which I think is very important for those of you who are in government, who are deeply concerned about what has been occurring in the prisons. I want you to know that I will be extending an invitation, not for this short 15-minute presentation, but for the 2.5-hour version, where everything that we are able to show you will be shown. It's quite a bit of video, it's quite a bit of audio, and I think it sheds a lot of light on the situation that we face here. Let me just start out by saying preliminarily, as someone who spent more than a year of my life going into prisons and jails as part of my job, I went into the Curran-Fromhold Correctional Facility probably 1,000 times, but certainly more than 100 times. And I would like to remind everyone that the name is Curran-Fromhold for a reason, and that is that Warden Curran, Deputy Warden Fromhold, were murdered. And they were murdered in a prison riot. And they were murdered in a prison riot that occurred at Holmesburg Prison in 1973. That was a very, very dark and disturbing period in the United States. It came only 2 years after the prison riot and everything that flowed around it that happened in Attica, New York. For those of you who have forgotten, the prison riot in Attica, New York resulted in 43 deaths, 43 men killed, 33 of them inmates, 10 of them correctional officers. They died not in the way you might expect, but that is a discussion for another day. I think we all share a deep and abiding concern for the safety of anyone who works in a correctional facility and the safety of anyone who is an inmate in a correctional facility and the safety of everyone else in the community. And we should, because there is work to be done. Having said that, I do want to give a special greeting to all those members of council who are here today, because I appreciate your interest and concern about this. I mentioned to Councilmember Vaughn a few months ago that we had an ongoing investigation in the case. We do now, that we would have more information today. We do have more information today, but when we have 2.5 hours of important information, some of which is appropriate to spread on the public record, some of which is more appropriate so that we do not facilitate any sort of additional problems to do so privately, it would be my wish that all of you, Chairman Jones, Councilmember Sharon Vaughn, who was kind enough to initiate these proceedings, Vice Chair Kenyatta Johnson, Councilmember Thomas, Councilmember Kendra Brooks, Councilmember Harity, and that all of your colleagues would take the opportunity as soon as you are available to come to my office, where we will not only present nearly all the information we have, everything we're allowed to present to you, but we will give you we'll have some of the harder conversations that can't necessarily happen in 15 minutes and cannot happen right here. You should also know that that presentation looks like about 30 to 35 different pieces of video and audio, photography, and other pieces of evidence. In this short presentation, we're only going to be able to present 2 or 3, although I think that those 3 items will have their impact and will no doubt remind you of why I have this very serious concern that we all work together, that we avoid the blame game, because we cannot have Attica here, and we cannot have another Holmesburg prison riot here. Our investigation around this case arose in the context of a few years of seeing some very negative things occur in the Philadelphia prisons. And I do not say that to point at anyone. I'm pointing at no one, except all of us who should work together to fix it. But those situations included things like a period of time when there were no civilian visits, yet we had a series of fatal overdoses on drugs that were occurring within the correctional facility, which means we know they weren't coming in from the visitors of inmates who were civilians. They were coming from personnel of some sort, not necessarily correctional officers. We had a prosecution involving brutality that occurred in the prison, where we had video of a correctional officer breaking the law. We have had prosecutions that have involved investigation of very large numbers of contraband cell phones. And in case you thought the contraband cell phones were no big deal, oh yes, they are. We have one case involving a defendant with multiple murders who was found to have even more cell phones than he had criminal cases, and had scratched the names of his victims into the wall of a cell. We have had a case in which we have had a case in which someone who was involved with food services worked with an inmate, a guy who was running a drug corner, and by the time they were done with his contraband cell phone, there had been an exchange of money through the phone for the purchase and distribution of an AR-15 assault rifle on the street. All right, so before this escape ever occurred, we all knew that there were issues that were occurring. And once again, I point a finger at no one other than to say that this is something we need to work together on. The final piece of information that I think a lot of us had was that a murder had occurred on the grounds of the prisons, that someone had waited outside for a person that for whatever reason he believed would be released, and that person murdered somebody, not his target actually, but murdered the wrong person, misidentified the person. The murderer in that case is named Amin Hurst, okay? The murderer in that case is Amin Hurst. The instigator, the main person in this escape is Amin Hurst. That is what we're talking about. We're not just talking about the escape of someone who was arguably among the very most dangerous people in the prison. He had 4 open homicides. He had 2 open gunpoint robberies. We're talking about someone who was literally charged with murdering somebody on prison grounds and very close to where he was held in the pick. So I say that to say that I from the bottom of my heart, I invite the mayor, I invite the next mayor, the day after Election Day, or as soon as we can figure it out, I invite council to get together with us so that we can be transparent and show you almost everything we have so you can work deeply on these issues. Now, having said that, I also got to give a huge thank you to Diana Cortez, our city solicitor. Without her intervention, because of extreme issues with video up at the prisons, it is very likely we never would have gotten the video that we have. But she went to the wall to make sure that there was transparency here before things were raced over, and in ways so that we could obtain video. One of the crucial issues that is revealed by our investigation is that the video system at the prisons has been so dysfunctional that, number one, for the most part, it is not monitored live. No one's watching. And number two, for the most part, you can't find the video you need. You can't go get it. The whole system will shut down. Obviously, that's an issue that needs to be addressed. I'm very encouraged to hear that the commissioner is talking about addressing it. But we're not necessarily talking about putting a bandage on a problem. We might be talking about a complete replacement of that, among other technological systems that present pretty serious issues. All right, so let me try to see what I can do to cover some ground here. I can tell you this, generally our job is to prosecute criminal activity. It's not to weigh in on whether something could be done better as a system, or at least it's not our main activity. But obviously the prisons are a part of what we work on every day. So our comments here for the benefit of a group of people, and I assume everybody on this call is in that group who want to do better, may go beyond what is criminal and go on into some things that are just systemic problems. Call it negligence, call it malfeasance, call it whatever you want. I'm not here to say exactly what's criminal or not. We have already charged 6 people in this escape, the 2 escapees and 4 other individuals. We may or may not charge additional people, but we are here to talk about a problem so we don't have an Attica, so we don't have another Curran or another Fromhold losing their lives in the disorder that obviously we all want to try to work together to address. Issue number 1, obviously, is an issue around lack of staffing. I think that there has been much discussion around that. If I may respectfully suggest some questions and some inquiries that council may wish to pursue, because we do talk to law enforcement all the time. We hear a lot of things from people who don't necessarily want their names out there. But one of the things that I have heard in general around law enforcement, and I'm not saying it's specific to the prisons, is that people apply for jobs and often the list for their applicability is extremely delayed. I have heard some information about massive expenditures to advertise and attract applicants, but if those applicants who are interested in being, let's say, a police officer or a correctional officer apply and they're not put on a list for 18 months or for 12 months, then all the employable ones will have another job. On the other hand, if there is a way to extremely quickly turn around these applications and make a thumbs up or a thumbs down, hopefully with cooperation of everybody, including the involved unions and the civil service process, then you may have far more success than simply advertising a job for people who can't afford to be unemployed for the period of time it takes for the list to show up. I will say that we know that based on information we have, there's a budgeted 1,719 correctional officer positions. 967 of them are sworn. You're looking at absentee rates, despite some positive news, inframarginal positive news. You're looking at some vacancy rates that are close to 40%. And there's no question that staffing issues relate to the escape itself. Do you want to show the photo at this time?
Certainly.
All right. We have a couple photos and a video. We'll show you the video at the end, which is actually video of the 2 escapees. That would be Amin Hurst and Nasir Grant sneaking across the tile floor of the correctional facility to make their way outside. We'll show you that in a moment. Okay, so this is a still photograph that relates to the video we'll show a little bit later. What you see there is a period of time when everybody's supposed to be in their cell, and yet you have an inmate in a white t-shirt with what look like black basketball shorts and sliders who is walking around. That is not one of the escapees. That is, in our opinion, the lookout. And so that you understand, video indicates that at a time when people are supposed to be locked up and there is supposed to be a guard who is sitting at the booth there that says, "Stay behind line," the guard is not there. There is a guard who is inside of the tinted glass just above the booth that says "Stay behind the line." And what this lookout is doing, he has gone from cell to cell where the inmates are incarcerated. He's had a long conversation of some sort with both escapees before they open the doors of themselves. But what he does, as he is allowed to ambulate within the prisons at this time, is he keeps an eye on the guard who is inside the tinted window and who has, as I understand it, 3 different locations to watch. So when he sees the guard looking the other direction, the escapees can sneak out. If you look at where the gentleman in the white t-shirt is staring, he is looking at an opening in the wall there. And if you look down at the floor, you'll see one of the escapees who is actually crawling through that door right now with the assistance of the lookout. We'll show you that video in a little bit. But this in and of itself shows multiple problems. One problem being that the guard who should be in that booth that says stay behind the line isn't there, has left a shift, apparently a second shift that is, apparently after about 4 hours, rather than completing the 8-hour shift. Likewise, you are then left with one guard who's inside of that tinted area who's responsible for looking at 3 different directions. And then obviously there are some issues to inquire about when you have an inmate whose name is Jose Flores Huerta. Mr. Huerta was in jail for murder, for a beating death, a first-degree murder. And yet he is, in the video that we'll show you and in this photograph, walking around the prison, engaging with people within their cells, apparently carrying bags of water and things like that to the cells while the prison is operating. In terms of the external infrastructure, I know there's been some commentary about the fact that there were 2 sensor poles that were removed, and they were removed because they did not work. But I think it is important as this body tries to figure out more of what's going on to know that there's a longer history there. The longer history is that there are a series of fences that you have to get through in order to escape. The photograph that is up now is actually a photograph that shows the 2 sensor poles. They are within the cyclone fencing there. If you look down from the garment that is hanging from the razor wire, you'll see one of those 2 sensor poles. Those sensor poles were there to determine whether there was anything running around inside of that area. That area is known as a dog run because many years ago there was a dog that ran up and down in there for reasons I cannot validate or I can't swear to. The dog was removed and was replaced with these poles. These poles are supposed to sense anyone who's in the area. My understanding is they work by microwave, but here's the kicker. So for anybody who's been up there, you'll know there are a lot of Canada geese that fly around. Well, over a decade ago, probably 15 to 20 years ago, the Canada geese, in the absence of a dog, were landing in the dog run. And when they landed in the dog run, they were setting off the sensors. And when they were setting off the sensors, eventually someone decided to turn them off. They have been turned off for more than a decade. Okay? The escapees here managed to make their way out of the prison in 90 seconds from the time they popped open their own doors. They made their way out of the prison in 90 seconds. They made their way under or through a pre-cut portion of the fence. And we'll get that. But they were in that dog run. This is a photograph of the fence itself. Cut well in advance of the escape itself. If I recall correctly, it was about 6 weeks. Is that right, Mr. Kosian?
7 weeks.
It's about 7 weeks before the escape this was cut. And we have video indicating that prison personnel actually were aware of this 4 days before the escape because there's video showing them out, looking at it, pointing at it, doing, indicating an awareness of what occurred here with this piece of the fence. 90 seconds to get out of prison, through that hole fairly quickly, but they were stuck in that dog run for 30 minutes with no dog and no sensors. And it is correct that they climbed the sensor pole to make their way out of the dog run. So while I totally understand that the removal of those poles is one aspect of the problem, obviously there's a lot more to do than simply remove the poles when we have a situation where there could be and should be monitoring occurring in there. If we move on to issues around employee malfeasance, around dysfunction and failure, and once again, I'm not pointing at anybody. I don't think that does us any good. I think we need to get all the facts and figure everything out before we're ready to say exactly who is responsible for what. But I think you should know that we know the escape occurred during a 4-hour gap. The correctional officer who should have been at the location I indicated before, that booth, left a second shift, had been held over to a second shift, left after 4 hours. There was no relief there. The escape occurs. When the relief finally shows up, that relief goes to sleep. We have the video indicating the relief went and sat in a chair and essentially slept. When it comes time to do the count, and I think this is an important thing to note because we're all aware that the escape itself was not something that was observed through the cameras that were essentially not going to serve that function. It's not something that was observed initially through a count. There were multiple counts that occurred after the escape that said nobody's missing, right? The way that this actually came to people's attention was there was some chatting going on among inmates that was overheard or maybe deliberately disclosed to a correctional officer many hours after the escape, and then that correctional officer started asking questions. So what I am telling you in no uncertain terms is that the correctional officer who came in after a 4-hour gap produced at least, either that correctional officer or that one and subsequent ones, produced at least 3 incorrect counts. We know for a fact that that correctional officer did not go check the doors to see who was anywhere and seems to have interrupted her sleep only long enough to go over and punch in the prior number, the prior count number, and send it along, okay? A count is supposed to be a count. A count is not supposed to be a nap, followed by falsely asserting a number you never counted. But unfortunately, that is what we see when we look at that. I think that highlights for you some of the most salient issues that we have to, that need, require inquiry, a lack of staffing, external infrastructure issues, which are broader than what I mentioned. The security video issue is crucial, and we're going to get to that in the context of the video we're about to show you. And then there's some internal non-video infrastructure issues as well. It is our purpose to work closely with everyone in government to make sure we have safety inside and outside of these prisons. But I want you to note something as we show you this final video, which is the video of the escape. It's not the entire video of the escape. It's not going to show you right now in this public situation how it is that those inmates manipulated the doors. But we know, we have that video. And it is my sincere hope that those in government who have a keen interest in this will come to our office and allow us to show you that video as well. But it will start with these 2 inmates who will be on the right side of your screen pushing their doors open. Never mind how it is they need to do that, but pushing their doors open. And it will then proceed to show you that they have no fear whatsoever of being on video. There's cameras all over. They know those cameras are not being watched, or they wouldn't have done it this way. They know that if the camera contents or the substance of the video are ever going to be obtained, it's going to be long after they're out of custody. And frankly, they were almost not obtained at all due to the extreme problems with the video technology that have existed at the prison. At this time, I'm going to ask ADA Zakosian to show you this brief section of video.
Certainly. And if I could just set this up for the council members. Good morning. It's very nice to speak to you about this, unfortunately, under the circumstances that we're in. But the section that you see right here is what we call the bottom tier of the H1 unit at the Philadelphia Industrial Correctional Center. The 2 cells that are in question are going to be immediately on your right. They're cells number 5 and 6. What you are then going to see after that is a view that goes the other direction, and it's going to be going towards the correctional officer booth and what they call the auxiliary bubble that the district attorney referred to. That's that black glass panel that is back there where a single correctional officer looks towards 3 different units. The view that's going to follow after that is a larger view of the day room, where you're going to be able to see not only the day room area, but also the area in which Mr. Hurst and Mr. Grant hid while awaiting a signal from Mr. Flores Huerta that they were able to sneak out into the yard, which, by the way, has a wide open and unlocked door at that time. And then the last view that you'll see is the H1 yard area, where you'll be able to see these 2 inmates run across and get through the hole that the district attorney previously showed you in that fence. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just let this play without comment.
All right, well, that is the video itself. Obviously, I just want to reiterate again my invitation to all relevant people in government to come to the office. We will accommodate you every way and every way. You want to come today, come on down. You want to come tomorrow, we will find a way. I don't care what the day is. I think there's an urgency that we all feel. And to the extent we can facilitate that, we certainly want to do it both before and after Election Day. Having said that, we are very happy to answer any questions to the extent we are able.
Well, thank you, Mr. District Attorney. There is, to say the least, a lot to unpack there. I see mechanical and personnel failures in tremendous proportions. We will take you up on the extended version of the review of photos, footage, and other information that you are willing to share. I'd like to also extend that invitation to the current administration, but to the two proposed 100th mayor candidates to attend that as well, because at the end of the day, what we don't want to do, and I think you said it in the beginning, is to not learn from these mistakes. And I know at this point in time, this administration is working on a transition report. And if nothing else, these kinds of facts that were found on the mechanical end, on the personnel end, need to be a part of a transition report so that the 100th mayor stands on the shoulders of this administration's corrective actions and needs assessments that have to be done for the safety of those who we have in custody, for the safety of those professionals that work within the institution, and for those people that are in the general public. That crime was committed, one of them, the homicides, in my district. So I know up close and personal, and you've been involved with this, how disconcerting that could be to potential witnesses to his case, that individual escaped and was gone for an extended period of time. So for the safety of the public, for the safety of professionals, and for the safety of the inmates, we will take you up on that meeting and extend that invitation to those individuals seeking to be the next mayor and inclusive of this administration, so that we give a warm handoff and correction action steps that can ensue. I guess what I would thank you for is the extensive investigation that you've done. And I'm assuming that with that will come recommendations on how to, I know that's not your wheelhouse, but I think based on your investigation, there might be information that might be useful on how to take corrective steps.
Yes, sir, 100%. I can tell you that the chief of our Special Investigations Unit, Leandra Rataco, and Brett Sikosian have dug in deep on this one. They have a lot of information. We have been given excellent access by Commissioner Carney here, and we have had tremendous cooperation from the city to try to obtain this. We have also, I should tell you, consulted with a prison expert, because we want to make sure that we understand what is possible in terms of improvement of this situation. And we are more than happy to share everything we can in relation to that report.
So we're going to take you up on that. I'm going to find a date that is conducive for the majority of the members of this committee to be a part of it, and any other members and staffers from the administration that would like to be a part of it. We will take you up on that, Mr. District Attorney.
Thank you, sir. Chairman, may I say this too? If you need to do it in a couple batches, we'll work with you, whatever we got to do. If you have to do it in 3 separate sessions, we will work with you to make sure that it can happen. It does have to happen at our office just for reasons related to the security of the items involved. Just because, electronic transmission of things that can't get out just yet is always unwise. But we are delighted to work with you on that.
When I think about, and I know Commissioner Carney is on top of this, as we relate to particular malfeasance possibilities that she can't talk about because they're ongoing cases, I get that. But whenever there's communications within the prison, phones and things like that, that puts everyone in danger in the community. And so I'm certain that she's on top of that, and she will share that offline, possibly of what steps are being taken. But are there, Mr. Glass, any questions from members of the committee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Councilmember Vaughn would like to be recognized.
Member Vaughn.
Yes. Mr. DA, I want to thank you for your due diligence in getting just a little bit of the information out to us today. And you and I did discuss having this meeting further reviewed in a private setting. Commissioner, let us help you. It's obvious there are some serious malfunctions and things that need to be addressed in our Philadelphia prisons. Unfortunately, I will not be here for the next administration, but please get with our chairman on public safety, whoever, if it's Curtis or Councilman Jones, or if it changes, get in their ear, ask them for the resources that you need to help you do your job better, because there is nothing more important than keeping your team and our city safe at this point. Criminals have no respect, as we can see, for the rules and the laws that we try to live by. So I'm hoping that this council body and the future one will give you in the next budget the resources that you need to make sure that your prisons are secure, that your staff is safe when they come to work, because I'm sure that's an issue as well. Some folks don't want to apply because they're afraid of the situations in the prisons. But I thank you all for being a part of this hearing. And I pushed it because I wanted to get some information out as a follow-up for our first hearing. I did not know that the case was still ongoing, but as we discussed in the last hearing, we would, finalize it as soon as possible. I have less than a month in my position, but I want everyone to understand the urgency of making sure that your financial needs are met to keep your facility staffed, as well as updating your video camera system to make sure that things like this are caught and in a timely fashion. If that means having a staff person watch it daily, and more importantly, I'm sure that the officer that came to work was probably getting some overtime and fatigued. So unfortunately, he or she did fall asleep at the wheel, allowing this to happen. But we don't want that to occur again if possible. We want you to make sure you get the staff that you need and the resources that you need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. And there's a saying that we spend 1% of our time worried about the mouse in our house. The mouse spends 99% of its time worrying where we are. And it was obvious that they had paid particular attention to the comings and goings and ongoing operations of our professionals at the facility. We have to have redundant systems, whether it's technology, whether it's human capital, constantly overlapping so that they are not as familiar with our systems as they have proven they are. So again, echoing Member Vaughn, let us help you, and we are here for that. Mr. Glass, is there anyone else who wants to question the district attorney?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Councilman Harity would like to be recognized.
Member Harity.
Hello, Chairman, District Attorney Krasner. You said that the video was bad and the system doesn't work because it's not interacting the way it should. In your opinion, just in general,
I'll say if I'm still here.
Chairman, you're still on.
Oh boy.
The camera system for the prison, you're saying is doesn't work the way it should be. What's your opinion on the camera system for the city in general, the cameras that we have out on the street? Because there's a lot of cameras, but I don't necessarily know if they're working right or if they're being monitored right. What is your, because you get to look at these videos while you're doing your cases probably more than anybody. What's your opinion of the video system in general that we're using?
Thank you for the question, council member. Always good to see you. So first of all,
sir.
my opinion is that the camera system that SEPTA has is excellent, and in many ways I think should be regarded, at least in Philadelphia, as the gold standard for how much good can be done when you have cameras that are not only up to date and monitored and recoverable, but you have them in many, many different locations. I cannot tell you the number of homicide cases we have where it's actually a camera that's on a bus, and the camera happens to drive by a regular stop, and there happen to be people walking down the street in distinctive clothing shortly before, a shooting occurs. You may not even have the shooting on video, but that kind of high definition video is absolutely crucial. I could explain to you other cases where the forensic unit at crime scene has been able to go and take a palm print off of a piece of steel because the high definition camera was so good that it could show this unknown killer sticking his hand down on a particular bench, and that enabled people to come behind it. So the good news is, if we look, for example, at the SEPTA system, it's up to date, it's high definition, it's excellent, it does a lot of good, and whenever we hear SEPTA video, we're always optimistic. The not as good news is that there certainly are a significant number of cameras in Philadelphia, and I don't think it's just Philadelphia, but there's a significant number of other cameras that either are not functioning, or they are functioning in a way so that they sweep from one side to another, and the timing of the sweep is not particularly helpful, or the visibility is blocked by sun glare, or the definition is so grainy that, yes, you can see, the silhouette of a small person on the screen approaching another person. You can see, a crooked arm coming out. You can see the other person falling down. But in terms of being able to see the things that PPD needs to investigate, such as, rust on the fender of a car, or the license plate number, or the distinctive markings on a pair of sweatpants, or the type of shoes, in terms of that, the camera fails us. It's absolutely better than nothing, but it ain't perfect. I will finally say that, I'm a huge believer that investment in technology, forensic technology, including camera technology, is extremely important. We do want to catch people who commit terrible crimes. We do not want to put innocent people in jail in their place. I think it's extremely important. It's been something that we have emphasized. But I also want you to know that, as an aspect of our gun violence task force statewide grant, we have been able to obtain some new cameras, and we collaborate in working around those cameras with the DIVIC and with the Philadelphia Police Department. I believe that the police department wants to be a solid partner and collaborate. I believe they want better high definition cameras. I believe if we can find the money, and obviously money is always an issue, but if we can find the money, it is essential and urgent at the prisons. It is also important in general in Philadelphia.
Thank you for that. That was good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, council member.
Thank you, Member Harity. On the camera aspect, one of the failures, obviously, within that technology, that those motion detectors should be synchronized to an alert that kind of goes off, in particular when there are spaces where there should not be unauthorized movement. And so that syncing of a camera, motion detector, and alarm has to be assessed. And those are things that we can kind of drill down on and work on. And I'm not an expert on that technology, but I've got to believe increasing those kinds of redundancies will help. The other thing is that couldn't we have cameras that have secondary, within the facility, Commissioner, secondary viewers, so that if in fact someone failed or fell asleep or whatever, had to go to the restroom, there's a second set of eyes in what is called a route for the cameras to be able to kick in, to be a second kind of fail-safe on viewing those cameras. Is that possible?
The technology that's available, that we're looking at, we need a centralized camera system that where every camera talks. There's motion sensor technology. We're close to entering into a contract for radio frequency ID armbands for the population that will allow us to, through that armband in real time, identify where folks are. So definitely a centralized camera. We will need 24-hour dedicated staff to do just that. Motion detectors, in addition to your uniform staff, all of these technologies, we're going to be we are working with public property, capital projects to get this underway. Our camera infrastructure is over 25 plus years old. It doesn't give us the real-time capability to pull video. It was extensive hours taken to pull that video. We worked hand in hand with the district attorney's office to provide, but it was a painstaking process. And when I say painstaking process, the clock was ticking. So we definitely will have to have you'll have to have cloud-based space, dedicated infrastructure to maintain just volumes of video that is recorded. So there are so many things that we're looking at, but the goal here is you have to integrate your system, have 24-hour monitoring, and use the technology that's available. So we're working on that now. Of course, hindsight is 2020. We were working on that. The RFID, we're closer than we have been, and that process that I want in place is that will help with accountability. So if you have this armband on, I should see that Jones, if there is an incident, you were in the vicinity, coupled with the video that you can laser in. The antiquated is you get the fishbowl and it's there, but there's technology where you can laser in and look at the serial number on the dollar bill. And so we have some of that newer technologies at RCF, NCFCF, but it has to be system-wide. So we'll be working to integrate our camera unified system.
I'm glad to hear that. I don't want to go in and take too deep a dive into one aspect of it. We need to have a longer conversation and meetings about it. But one I will take of the parking garages actually now utilize a camera system that where individuals aren't even on premises. They're in different parts of the city or even not in the city at all, and they're utilizing veterans, disabled veterans, to be able to monitor those cameras in a way that is a force multiplier for the boots on the ground within your facility. But that's a discussion for another day. Mr. Glass, are there any other members who want to ask questions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see any more members wishing to be recognized in the chat or have their hand raised.
Member Vaughn, are you okay?
Yes, I am. I am very satisfied with the information that we got from the district attorney as well as the commissioner. And I just want to reiterate again that this was not a witch hunt. This was basically a way for us to see how we can make things better within the system, as well as, like I said earlier, help the commissioner make those facilities more secure and just get an explanation of how it happened. And it's obvious that things are severely outdated and that major resources are going to be needed in order to correct these problems. And I like the idea that you made about maybe increasing the incentive for people to take those jobs. And I strongly believe once we get a system or update the technology, that more people will feel interested or show interest in taking these jobs because they will feel safer when they report to work. No one wants to go anywhere where there's a possibility that they may not return home. Um, we all just want to make a living so that we can get back to our families and loved ones. I thank you all for taking the time. I thank all my other council colleagues for being on this hearing. And I hope you all take us up on going to the DA's office and seeing um, all the footage that he has to offer us so that we can gain knowledge and so that you all can do your jobs better in helping Commissioner Carney get what she needs in order to make the necessary changes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Member Vaughn. Mr. Glass, who is the next? Do we have any other panels to testify?
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Harity would like to be recognized.
Member Harity. I think you're on mute, sir.
Yep, got it. This is just a general question, since, us on council, we're looking at different ways that maybe we could help with the law enforcement. Just would like to have your opinions on drones, both of you, and doing, A, in fighting crime, or B, in monitoring the prison.
So we would work with PPD. Drones are another tool that we can utilize to hover over our 25-acre campus. Anywhere there's a camera, a PPD camera, that would help to have that drone. And that is a good detection. And it would have to, infrared technology, movement. If it's moving, it should pick it up. So we would look forward to working with PPD, all these acronyms on that. So open to that as well. And that'll help, again, if we're working as a city to combat this, that we're not a standalone department, it really does go a long way. So yes, we're open to that and very helpful for that tool.
Simply put, yes, facts are good, truth is good, science is good. Getting it right is good. Whether that particular solution is the best one for the prisons, I would defer to the experts, but it certainly might be. And I would also say that, as I mentioned before, we have engaged an expert to take a look and to inform us, because let's be honest, it's not our area of expertise. And we will be happy to share that in private session as well.
Yeah, I thank you for that. And I'm looking at it too, because I know there's been some problems with it in places where they already have it, like Seattle and California and New York, with some lawsuits over privacy issues. I think if it was done right, it would be a help. But I do think we also have to worry about, whose rights we're violating with the drones. But in the prisons, that I believe that would probably be a help there. I'm still looking at that's why I wanted your opinion, still looking at how it would be as an actual policing tool. So thank you.
Yeah, council member, just one final comment. Obviously, the privacy, under the law, the privacy concerns are much less at a prison and a jail as they would be in a residential neighborhood. So that's something we can certainly discuss further.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Harity. With that being said, thank you for your testimony. It was enlightening, and it illustrates, when you go to the doctor's office, you get an examination, there's a degree of uncomfortableness when you get the examination, but that's all a part of assessing what's wrong so that you can get better and we can get better. So that's what we're doing. And with that, thank you for your testimony. Appreciate you. Mr. Glass, do we have any others to testify?
Mr. Chairman, we have no more panels to testify, and we are ready to move into public comment.
Okay. And who do we have for public comment?
Mr. Chairman, our first witness or individual for public comment is Kate Mackey.
Are you connected? Kate? Ms. Mackey, are you there?
She's being called in now.
Okay.
Hello?
Are you there? Good morning.
Hello.
Hello? And are you prepared to testify?
Yes, I am. My name is Kate Mackey from Local 2187.
Welcome. Please start your testimony.
Thank you, committee. I serve as a staff representative for Local 2187, comprising social workers, psychologists, education, and administrative staff at the Department of Prisons. Our dedicated team is committed to facilitating positive change and providing essential support to the individuals under our care. Witnessing daily transformations, we firmly believe in the possibility of rehabilitation and improvement. However, the current staffing crisis has significantly impacted our ability to provide services to the incarcerated individuals. This not only affects our clients, but also has wider implications for the entire city. The presence of treatment staff in critical situations within the prisons has historically fostered a sense of stability. Regrettably, due to the current situation, our capacity to deliver essential services has been compromised. We rely heavily on sufficient security staffing from members of Local 159 to ensure the seamless execution of our responsibilities. In the absence of adequate security staffing levels, court-mandated services, crisis counseling, and educational programs are at risk of disruption. The consequences of the security staffing crisis has been publicly acknowledged, but there is also a staffing crisis in regards to treatment staff. In 2011, there were approximately 100 social workers catering to the incarcerated population. Today, this number has dwindled to a mere 40. There are only 3 psychologists providing services to the incarcerated population on State Road. The failure to fill these crucial vacancies directly affects the individuals awaiting substance abuse programs, court-mandated violence prevention initiatives, and GED preparation courses. Members of Local 2187 are resolute in their daily efforts to facilitate the successful reintegration of incarcerated persons into society as productive citizens of the City of Philadelphia. Our services play a pivotal role in reducing recidivism rates, enhancing public safety, reuniting families, and empowering clients to pursue their aspirations. I earnestly implore the esteemed council members to address the persistent issues within the Department of Prisons, particularly the ongoing staffing crisis that significantly impacts one of the city's most vulnerable populations. Thank you for hearing my testimony today, and I hope for your continued support and dedication to the well-being of our community.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and thank you for what you do for those who are incarcerated and those who will be released and integrated back into society. We do appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Mr. Glass, Do any of the committee members have questions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see anyone in the chat or with their hand raised for questions. And Ms. Mackey was our final witness for public comment.
Okay. Member Vaughn, do you have any closing comments?
No, I'm very pleased with the result of this hearing today and looking forward to assisting the commissioner in every way possible. And I will definitely encourage my colleagues to follow suit. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Member Vaughn, for staying on top of this issue. And once we started peeling the layers of the onion, it went deep. So thank you for that. With that being said, this concludes the Committee on Public Safety, and we will continue at the call of the chair. Thank you all for your testimony.
Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome.
Have a good day, everyone.
You as well.